Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're so excited that you're all here. This is very exciting. For those of you who don't know, my name is Kaleigh Floyd. I am I am also the marketing and sales director, but also the business development director for Axiom. This is also Bobby Guerra. For those of you who don't know, he's the CEO at Axiom. We are an MSP that was CMMC Level 2 certified at the beginning of this year. And we're very excited to talk to you guys about CMMC. We're going to talk about our journey. We're going to talk about the things that we've learned. We've had many discussions with MSPs in this community, and we're just excited to continue the discussion. We really, really want to encourage questions. So if you guys have any questions at all, feel free to put it in the questions section. If you click on the Q&A section at the top of your screen, you should be able to enter in any questions you have there, and we'll be monitoring that chat as well. And yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get started and just share a little bit about us. Bobby, did you want to intro just your experience and how you got into CMMC too, real quick for them?
Yeah, it's I was talking with my team, just this has been the hardest journey that we've ever had to undertake as a business, trying to move as an MSP. It's never a good sign when you do a Google search for how do you do CMMC as an MSP, and crickets, and you're like, ooh, okay, this is going to be interesting. But we had a passion for it. It was something that we knew that if we could get in there and really learn it, it's a greenfield space for us to be able to do. A lot of risk there, but I think it's a high reward situation. A lot of this we'll talk about today. So very exciting.
Absolutely. So let's get into just a little bit about us. And,
I love the pants.
The specifics. Yeah.
That's hilarious. I'm actually wearing them right now.
Are you wearing them right now?
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. We do wear our tactical pants around. They have many, many pockets. Some may say too many. Some say just enough. But we thought we'd share it with some of the MSP community that might be on here that relate to having to carry a lot of cords, a lot of USBs, a lot of things when you're part of an MSP. So just like I said before, we're CMMC Level 2 certified. We have help desk support as well. So we do have commercial clients, not all CMMC. We started in 2002. So we've been around for a while just as an MSP. So CMMC was not our only thing. We decided to go down that journey about 4 years ago. And so yeah, we are an MSP first and foremost at heart. We also do documentation templates and configuration of those templates for CMMC. We build GCC and GCC high containers for our clients. And we also do assessment preparation and participation in our assessments. I'm going to get into why that's not really necessarily an option right now, but some people think it is. But yeah, we'll talk about that later. Well, and then also the maintenance piece of it. So
and something that's really important is we only do one offering for clients for CMMC. So it's not like we break it out into little things. We looked at it from the perspective of what do we need to do to get a client to standing on the podium, holding the certificate, that's ours behind me, with a perfect 110. What do we got to do that? And so coming up with lots of different options that really creates confusion. I mean, CMMC is already difficult enough as it is. So we were like, one solution, our solution is getting them as the Sherpa to the top of the hill as fast as possible with the most consistency, allowing them to operate as a normal business, and us being their full-fledged IT company doing help desk, getting them ready, doing it all. So we basically took how we operate as an MSP and injected our CMMC process of onboarding and getting it all done, and we'll talk about some of that today.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's vision this a little bit more outward first before zooming into specifically how we did it. For those of you who might be on the call that might be newer to the CMMC space or the requirements needed for it, let's talk about NIST 800-171 because that is a very important special publication about protecting controlled unclassified information. It has 110 controls, 320 assessment objectives, and this is the baseline for CUI systems. And this is what CMMC is based off of. Now, many people on here, and I'm sure are MSPs, and I would really love to turn it to you guys and just ask if you could raise your hand or send something in the chat if you right now have a client who is a contractor or a subcontractor in the DIB space. So raise your hand or put something in the chat to let me know how many of you guys have some clients out there. Okay. I'm seeing a lot of hands coming up. Wow. All across the board. Okay. Awesome. So many of your clients have probably attested to this baseline, to NIST 800-171 and controlling unclassified information. And if they have these requirements in their contracts right now, which many of them do, these are already some things that they should be doing and they should be self-attesting to. But many have not properly done what needs to be done. And to be honest, many of you might not even have known that you're supposed to be helping them do this because they didn't tell you, because they didn't think it was necessary. So that is where 32 CFR Part 170 comes into effect last year in December. And that is the mechanism that the department used to confirm contractors have properly adhered to these requirements. Basically meaning bye-bye self-attestation and say hello to third-party assessment organizations that will come in and do it for you because they can't trust the contractors themselves anymore. So that is what is now being rolled out. The phased rollout is going to start when 42 CFR drops. That has not dropped yet, but it is estimated to be dropped by the fall of this year. Okay, so that is a very big deal. I didn't come up with that number, by the way. I've just listened to Katie Arrington, and she brings the hammer down. And so I will trust what she says because she is mostly in charge of that stuff. So, yes.
And so you need to be expecting your clients that they might come to you and go, okay, almost like, some type of like splinter cell that just sort of pops up and goes, hey, yeah, we're gonna need some CMMC. Can we have that next week? And you're like,
yeah, we're gonna need that.
We can spell that for you next week, but that's about the extent of our capability of implementing it. So know and kind of think about if you have organizations that are doing manufacturing or design or even architecture type stuff, you want to get a general idea. Even construction. There's organizations that are getting pulled into CMMC and they do like vending machines because they get maps of the base that they have to pick where they're going to put the vending machines. And because that information is controlled and classified, the map itself, they're getting, those types of requirements.
It's so true. Yeah.
So it's like you have to pay attention that you might just all of a sudden get bushwhacked with these conversations in the fall. So, you need to start thinking about how you're going to handle those clients. And if you want to pass them off or if you want to get involved in it yourself, right? It took us almost a year to get ready ourselves as an organization. So if you're planning on supporting those clients when they come to you, then, you're probably behind the curve if you want to be able to say yes to those clients that are coming at you.
Yes. So. And I can't emphasize how much many of these contractors don't understand the risk and the involvement needed for an MSP when stepping into this space or being able to help them. They don't understand the MSP side. And so they think, yeah, we'll be able to do this, right? But they think nothing of it. But it is definitely our duty to stay in front of this as far as security protection and and making sure that we stay ahead of the game even when they might not know exactly what goes into those.
We have two questions I think I'd like to answer super quick.
Yes, let's do it.
So Roger asked the question about what if you have a situation where you have a client that's got a hybrid, so where they have a chunk of their business that isn't CMMC requirements and then some that is. So in those situations, you really have two options. They can swivel seat. We have some clients that have created a small GCC container for only a subset of their people. And when they have that type of data, that's where it goes. That's where it resides. a lot of times that's a good fit when it's like systems where what they're doing, what they're building, or whatever they're making isn't really CUI, but what they're sending them may contain it.
Yes.
An example of that is they might have a part that they have, but they're sending requirements that are to systems that have those requirements. So what they're making may not require that. It is not, do not get in the game of you having to determine that, right? That's what attorneys are for. Refer them to CUI attorneys that can do that. Don't try to determine that yourself, because that's just, unless you understand the nuances of what is CUI and what is not, just don't think that that's what we do, because we definitely don't do that.
No,
steer clear of that. Now, there might be a situation where a lot of what they do is going to have those requirements, but only a small percentage of them will do that. You can basically have one container and kind of separate those that have access to those that don't. So there's kind of two different ways to handle that. And then the other question was, when is right now NIST 800-171 alpha Rev 2 is what CMMC is based on right now. There is what's called a what's the term? What is it? Class deviation, so that they can keep version 2, even though version 3 is out. Version 3
technically supersedes version 2, but not with 32 CFR.
Right. So so we're running an older version of the requirement. I would not be surprised if we didn't see that start to have pressure next year, because the DoD is really, really wanting to get on the current version of it. They've already released all of the organizational defined values, like what those are supposed to be, and they're very aggressive. And that's already been defined. I think last month is when those dropped. So they're keeping a close eye on how the market rollout is going to be, on when they'll want to do it. I would hope that they wouldn't do it next year. I wouldn't be surprised if something like that did happen. But I don't think the market can handle it pushing that right now next year. So we'll see. I think the DoD is kind of taking a wait and see to see how the market roll out. Depends on when they're going to do it.
I think they care more about 48 CFR at this moment and dropping that, and then going to focus on Rev 3 and that implementation after. Now, Elvis did ask an interesting question about, do people call it NISPOM? Is that easier than saying NISPOM? I don't know, just wondering. I don't know much about that, but I do know that that's classified information. So an organization seeking assessment for, he said, yep. Organization seeking assessment for CMMC requirements, which is CUI, controlled unclassified information requirements, that also fall under classified information. I personally I've talked to many contractors. I've not run upon that. I feel like the people that this is hitting, that are not prepared for this, are people that are not used to anything close to that. People that are used to classified information and handling that are probably way more secure, or I would hope. I would like to hope by this point, whereas these people are much lower on the totem pole, or so they think at this moment. And those are the people that we're running across. Sometimes even people that you wouldn't even think. Like, an example of a contractor that I talked to is just they made a specific part for a specific thing for a submarine. Like, it's like only one part. They made this one part that connected the hose to the docking mechanism, and like that's it. And that's the part that they made. And like that's how specific they were, and they had no idea that because of the schematics that they had, or because of the things that they had, like they would have to do this. So those are the types of companies more that we're seeing, rather than people that are also dealing with classified information, if that helps.
There are a few that we run into that might have skiffs or things like that, but rare. Most of the time it's like mom and pop or businesses that are just, have these requirements and they're just not sure how to handle it.
Yeah. So let's talk about MSP challenges, and we kind of talked about this, that your clients are probably already saying they're doing this, and maybe even you're doing this. So please be aware. I did want to just put up on the screen DFARS clause 252.204-7012. Keep that memory in your pocket. Make sure to write that down. That is the safeguard CUI DFAR clause that should be in contracts that are handling CUI and attesting to NIST 100-171 security controls. So please be aware of that. If your clients have that in their contracts, this is definitely, falling under them. So keep that in your back pocket. Also, if you have subcontractors too, keep that. And
also, you got to look out for 7008. So just that first two chunks of numbers is the same. Dash 7000, dash 7008, 7019, and 7020. Those are all have different requirements attached to them, but they're all related to CMMC.
CMMC.
So if they have basically do searches of their contracts, and if they have those in there, they've attested that they're already being compliant, even though they probably aren't.
Yeah. If they don't know that, they definitely can know it. They have the contract in front of them. They can search it. So please encourage them to search it.
And I can't tell you, they get so wide of what? I'm like,
They're like, are you kidding me? We're like, no.
You have to do it gentle when you're talking. Because they're like, well, you're coming at me. No, I'm not trying to come at you. I'm just telling you about risk.
Yeah. Because it's risk for us as well on the other side. Okay, so let's talk about MSP challenges. Bobby, this is very near and dear to your heart. Do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, so if you're looking down the barrel of you as an MSP wanting to do this, these 4 things are like as immutable as, you living. Like you like it, like if you're going to do this, this is what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to do at least these 4 things. You're going to have to figure out how you're going to get your team educated. That doesn't mean that all of your team has to be like, CCAs. It just means that you need to have the knowledge inside your MSP to understand how to do this.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's more than just doing a CCA. You got to think about how you as an MSP operate and how you can do that. And then the other thing is you've got to now also think about from a technical perspective, what types of ways you're going to build your GCC or GCC high container. Are you going to use Azure Gov? Are you going to use Google? Whatever your platform is you're going to try to use, you've got to settle on what your technical design of that is. Okay. And that's its own thing. And usually someone in your team may have some or all of that knowledge, but it's going to lean heavily on data loss prevention and, labeling and other security permissions and conditional accesses. There's all types of things that you have figuring out how you're going to do your baselines. There's all kinds of specific technical requirements. We call it the Magnificent Seven. You've got your application allow, listing, vulnerability checking. The list just goes on and on and on, but they add up to like 7 critical things you need to do. We have some podcasts we talk about that. The documentation and architecture design. So that's its own entity. It's just as critical as the architecture of what you're building. You have to also think about how you're going to do your documentation, how you're going to have your system security plan. It is the center of your spider web that goes out to your policies, which then go out to your procedures. Those are its own system. You have to have yours that then call and talk to the client. And that's what goes to number 4, which is supporting your client. You've got to think about how you're going to support your client, how you're going to teach your team on how they're going to support. All 4 of these are major lifts for an MSP if they've never done it before. And so you've got to think about each of those. And the reason why it gets so costly for MSPs is a lot of times these are different roles inside your organization that people have to spend time that you have to pay to figure that out.
So true.
And those take 6 months to a year, each individually, on how you're going to do it. Doesn't mean that you have to have everything all figured out before you bring on a client, but a chunk of it does. So you got to think about the prerequisites before you, because you don't want to have to go like, I'm going to bring on some clients and we're both building. Like they're going to build on you. You don't build side by side. So they're building on you. And because of that, that's why you have to have a certain level of maturity before you can start bringing on clients around that. If not, you will fail them.
Yes. And I have said this multiple times. So if you've heard us talk before, you probably heard this saying, but we do call it marriage counseling for CMMC, where an MSP walks through CMMC for the first time with their client, also walking through it for the first time. And we do not recommend that. There is a lot of risk involved, involved.
Would you go through together with your heart surgeon, figuring out how to do your heart surgery? Right? I have a consultant. They're going to tell me how to do that. We're going to figure out how to do this together. And you'll be like, no. I want the pro who's already done it a bunch of times.
Yeah. I'll
I
find
don't want you
somebody else.
touching me until that. But that, people do that all the time, and they think that it's not a big deal. It is.
Yeah, it's a
It
huge
is
deal.
very complicated. All those 4 things that I just listed require maturity and difficulty of trying to figure out how to do. And you don't want to try to do that while you're trying to help someone else through it until at least you've spent a good amount of time trying to figure out each of those 4 before you start trying to do that.
Yes. And here's the reason why we speak so much about this is because we know what we had to do, and we still feel like we could have even prepared even more.
Yeah.
And we prepared for many years for this. And we actually did a little bit of a weird way. We did not accept any CMMC clients into our system. So we didn't have them before and then went after CMMC. We had some people that were iffy about if they needed it or not, but none that actually were. We didn't accept CMMC clients into our system until we were ready with a guaranteed system. We went through a mock assessment and got our perfect score, and we're already scheduled our full level 2 assessment before we even accepted people into our system. And so
back up real quick. I want to try to provide some really good insight, because I really want everybody to walk away with some really good stuff on this. I mean, obviously I can't sit down and just let's coach you through all the phases, but can you back up one slide, Kaleigh? Is that possible? Yep. So what you just said is so true, right? So let's talk a little bit about what you probably should have before you bring on a client discussing these. First off, you need to have the technical understanding of how you're going to do it, right? Don't bring on a client if you don't know how to even do data loss prevention in how you're going to try to design and think about how you're going to attack it, right? If you haven't used Intune before, know how to do a solid baseline. Also, one of the things you got to think about is your RMM. As far as I know, there is no RMM that has appropriate FedRAMP requirements, because the RMM is going to be able to do everything in that tenant that is a CUI environment. And you're not going to be able to use an RMM that is going to be FedRAMP approved, because there isn't one right now. And so you're going to have to think about trying to tackle this with whatever your RMM is going to have to go out the window. So you're going to think about how you're going to attack this without one. And your only weapon right now, for the most part, is Intune. So you got to think about how you want to attack this challenge, and how you to do that. Like an organization like Ninja One, for example, they're in FedRAMP ready state, but they haven't been authorized. Kaseya said that they were going after theirs as well. Now, if you self-host, you can dodge that bullet. Some people that use Automate, people that use I think Kaseya you can self-host as well. You can sort of dodge that challenge, because now you're self-hosting it and you get that environment audited, and that's what's supporting your clients. You dodge that bullet, and it doesn't bring you in as a CSP. That's a whole other discussion. So you really want to think about that. That is a big part. And number 4, you really have to think about how you're going to support your clients, how you're going to attack them through that process. And then you got to think about your documentation design, about how when we got our level 2, that doesn't mean magically we knew exactly how to do the level 2 documentation for all of our clients and how we connect the 2 together. There's no audit for that. So.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm going to go over to the slide about assessments, because I think that's important to talk about as well. I did want to discuss when you're saying yes to being an external service provider for somebody in the CMMC space that needs to be CMMC level 2 certified. Many ESPs, which is, if you're an MSP in this chat, that's what we are classified under, is an ESP, an external service provider. When you are saying yes to that, you are also saying yes to a couple other different things that you should very much be aware of. One is definitely be prepared. Everything that Bobby said, you 100% should do. But also, the assessment is the other piece of this that you should be greatly, greatly prepared for. When an external service provider is doing controls or certain controls for an OSA, an organization seeking assessment, they will be pulled in to that OSA's CMMC Level 2 assessment. The services provided by the ESP have to be documented in the OSA's system security plan and also described in the external service provider's service description and customer responsibility matrix. We have not talked about the CRM fully yet, but that is a document that you are required to have and bring to the table in an assessment when you are an external service provider. There are many false starts that have happened that I've heard about from assessors and lead assessors that I've talked to that happened because these things were not ready or were not fully actually done. A customer responsibility matrix needs to go through every control, every assessment objective, who is doing what the external service provider is doing, what the customer is responsible for. It needs to go through these things. Like, you cannot half booty it, right? They won't allow you to. If you don't have this documentation in phase 1, which we're going to talk a little bit about the phases of an assessment too, if you don't have that, you're not even going to get past the first phase. You literally could help the OSA fail if you do not bring the documents that are required of you. And that could not be stressed enough, in my opinion. These are expensive assessments. These are no joke. They're not cheap. You do not want to be the reason the OSA has a false start on something like this. So,
and you really need to understand division of duties and responsibilities. So that's where the educational piece is very critical. There's been MSPs out there that think, oh, if I get level 2, I can magically, and they can magically pass everything and inherit from us. It doesn't work that way.
Yes,
exactly. There's definitely inheritance there. That's a whole other meeting. We've have a webinar, or not a webinar, but a podcast coming out where we talk about that in more length.
Yeah, it'll be on Thursday. It'll be
Thursday.
Come out.
Okay. Yeah, we'll be talking about that in more detail. But you need to understand the division of responsibilities. Who's going to talk and what part of the audit? Who's responsible for that? It has to be spoken in your agreement. So just a standard MSP agreement isn't going to cut. You could actually go in your audit with just a basic agreement and actually come out as a false start because your agreement doesn't have appropriate verbiage to talk about your responsibilities.
Yes. Yeah. Let's get in more detail about that because I do have that here. So there's phase 1 and phase 2 of a CMMC level 2 assessment, which, again, I said this at the beginning, but it's done by a third-party assessment organization. The phase 1 is gathering the documentation and what is needed for the assessors to know, okay, they're ready for phase 2. Like, okay, they have enough to where we could fully assess them. They have the proper documentation, they have the proper information that we need. And when it comes to phase 1, if an ESP is involved, they have to provide the customer responsibility matrix, which is there. It's the external service provider's customer responsibility matrix. Okay, so not the client's, but it's yours as the ESP, and your agreement with the OSA, which should talk to 32 CFR and the specific controls and what you would do, and not in detail like a system security plan, but it needs to have the verbiage in it that CMMC is being accounted for in there. And just like Bobby said, it can't just be a regular commercial agreement, if you've had commercial clients before. Okay.
And aren't we going to provide some stuff, I think? Right?
Yeah. So after this webinar, I'm really excited. We will be sending you guys over this week some information about this, some examples of a CRM system security plan that you can look over and just get an idea. These are not perfect. These are not ours. These are just things and evidence that we have gathered and different things that we think could be beneficial to you guys if you're starting off. So,
well, if you're anything like me, which I mean, because I got level 2 and we're going through this, if I can do it, anyone can, because I'd never seen a system security plan when I started this journey. I was like, what does that even mean? I mean, because in MSP, like we don't, sit down and have that detailed documentation that is required for a CMMC type level implementation. I'm just being honest with you. Like when I was starting this journey, I was like naive as all get out about this. And I didn't know what right sort of looked like. So we created the documents we're going to be sending aren't perfect. There are actually some very specific imperfections in there because we use this data that we're going to send you for demoing and showing examples and training. But at least you can start to see how the framework of this sort of starts to work, so that if you were anything like us starting your journey and you kind of want to look at like, what does a system sort of plan sort of look like? We even have, I think, some podcasts where we talk about those specifically and break it down. And I think we'll even have a webinar coming up about it too.
Yes. And we will put all those resources in there as well for you guys. Now, Matt asked the question, what about FedRAMP equivalency? For your Ninja One example, as we all know, the FedRAMP certification process can take some time. If they are willing to provide a BOE, or even better, are able to provide attestation for the 3PAO, I believe that should suffice, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so my opinion is no. The reason why is the DoD released a memo that speaks specifically about FedRAMP equivalency. And the bar to hit equivalency is actually higher than actually FedRAMP itself, by the way that they defined it, because they just don't want people to do it. They freaking hate it. They just don't want organizations to claim, I'm as good as the real thing, and then when you go to look at it, they've found traditionally that's just never been the case. Everybody likes to say that because they just don't want to do that. So what they did is, if you want to say that, this is the bar that you have to be at. And everybody looked at that and said, well, that's worse than just doing it ourselves. And they're like, exactly. They're like, that's our point. They just don't want people doing equivalency if they can help it. So that has become a bit of a battleground with C3PAOs about how they are allowing organizations to do inheritance. I've heard some horror stories where people have been okay with equivalency and then have been punched right in the face when they tried to use the tool that was equivalent. So it is dangerous fire to play with. Some people have been okay with that. Me personally, when I'm moving clients at scale through it, I want to have I know this is going to work and I don't have to worry about that kind of perspective. So I just steer away from that. I only try to use tools that I know are going to work and will pass. And I don't want to have to worry about an auditor raising an eyebrow about something. And using tools that are equivalent is a perfect example of playing with that kind of fire. Doesn't mean you can't do it. It's just not the fire I want to play with. So buyer beware about that.
Yeah. Elvis also asked a question, isn't there a new IR process for the DoD C3 that replaced the DibNet portal? I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, that just happened like a few weeks ago. Like we're scrambling, trying to figure out exactly what that process is, create our new procedures around that, just because, that kind of surprised everybody.
Yeah.
So
this is a great example of what CMMC does bring to the table of MSPs as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't have a good answer for you. We're still trying to suss that out. But when we do find more specific stuff, we'll definitely post about it.
That's a great question. Elvis said, I will help you. I love that. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, so let's talk about phase 2. So phase 2 is actually the part where you are speaking to the assessors. They're asking you questions. They're deep diving into your documentation, your system security plan. We love to talk about, I think we say the assessment tango or the assessment dance during this. I really encourage any of you who are stepping into your CMMC journey as an MSP to do mock assessments with the C3PAO and practice what it is like to be an ESP, helping somebody through this, or even just doing it yourself, so that you know what it's like to have those conversations and be prepared for those things. It's not easy. It can be very scary. You can be scrambling sometimes. You need to know what you're going to pull up and when, how to talk to them when you don't talk too much, those kinds of things. So it's really critical to know this side of things as well. And it does speak in the CAP, the CMMC assessment process that the Cyber AB released, that assessors should are expectant that the ESP is going to show up for this as well.
Right.
So they are expectant that you as the external service provider are going to show up because you have controls that they need to see. Like an example, even that Bobby said, can your client get into your Intune and know where to go to show, the access? Are they going to be able to do that? Probably, probably not. That's you. And they want to talk to you because you are doing it. Okay. Just to clarify, we've talked about a couple different things, but I wanted to have them all on the screen at the same time. Documents that are definitely required when you're stepping into the CMMC space and you're going to help multiple clients as an MSP. You should have a system security plan for your environment that you're going to be servicing your clients from, your customer responsibility matrix that defines who is doing what, and specifically what you are doing for your clients, and then the agreement that the client can sign that speaks directly to CMMC verbiage. So yeah. Okay. Next and lastly, it is critical to talk about scalability. Now, many of you guys raise your hand. Many of you raised your hand saying that you had at least one client that was in the CMMC space that was a contractor or subcontractor in the DIB that potentially needed this requirement. Now, I have talked to many MSPs that just have one or maybe just have two, and they decided they don't want to go full CMMC. This is definitely commitment. What Bobby has explained, we recommend if you're going in, you're going in, and we need MSPs. We need good MSPs that can help people get through this because there's a lot of people that need to get through this. And when 48 CFR drops in this fall, it's going to be a madhouse, and they're going to be like, oh my gosh, I need this thing and I need it now. So we need people that want to step into this space. But also we understand that if you just have one or two clients that are doing this and you don't want to spend this much money for those only one or two clients, we understand that. But, just ask yourself those questions. Do you want to fully step into this space? Do you want to get CMMC level 2 certified? Because if you're going to make this scalable and you're really going to step into the space, I really genuinely feel in my bones, why would you not get yourself level 2 certified? It will help you dramatically when servicing and helping your clients as well, and not have to do that marriage counseling for CMMC approach. But Bobby, you want to speak to your perspective on this as well for some of the MSPs listening too?
Yeah. So again, try to be very real and provide as much insight as I can. We try to always be transparent when we can. So it's going to take you anywhere between, I would say, 100 to 200-ish thousand to pull this off. Mm-hmm. And you're like, well, screw that. I'm not going to do it. Okay. Well, all right. That's a decision you have to make. It's not that I'm trying to shock anyone, but if you start thinking about how it has to work, when you look at what's required, when I said you need people that are going to spend time, those people have to get paid, right? So if they're not doing your commercial stuff, they're working on your
help desk support.
Yeah, they're going to have to work on those documentation designs. They're going to have to work on that. So just payroll alone over the course of a year and a half of trying to do that, you're going to spend at least that much just in people. It's not a check you got to stroke at first.
No.
But when you start to think about it, you got to start in your mind to think about, if I'm going to tackle this, I need to think about time. Time is money. How much time and people am I going to throw at this to make this happen? And it's not, there's no speed run for this. Like, it takes the education and the knowledge and understanding of that. So you've got to spend the time, and that's what sucks up that money for you, is you're throwing so much time of your people and resources at it that it's going to just chew away at that. And so you've got to think about, do you want to invest that? Okay. So, but it takes about 3 to 4 clients to turn back net positive on that cost. Okay. That's so huge. Not a lot of clients to actually be positive to turn that back around. But obviously you don't want to go through that extremely difficult process just to break even. You're not the Red Cross. You want to make some money. So you got to think about how you want to scale this if you want to step in. And that's really where part of this webinar that I hope people get from this is an MSP. If you want to step in that space, that's what you're really looking down the barrel of trying to do. And there's some people that look at that and go, sign me up for that. I want some more. That sounds delicious. And other people like, that's the most terrifying thing that I've ever thought of. I didn't know that when I was getting in. Let me just tell you that right now. I didn't know what tiger I had by the tail. I'm glad I still did it. Yeah. But had someone been able to shoot straight with me about what was going to be involved and how difficult of a challenge this was going to be, I would have gone in with my eyes wide open a lot better, and I would have appreciated that. So that's part of what we're trying to accomplish here for everyone involved, is to try to help provide that additional eyes open about what you're going to look down to. But you can do it at scale. The industry desperately needs you if you want to do it, but you got to do it right, and you got to fully commit. You can't throw your intern at this and expect it to work. You've got to have qualified, very expensive people working on this with you, and you as a leader have to commit to this fully. Like, it has changed our organization because you can't any other way, in my opinion.
in my personal opinion.
In my humble opinion.
And what do we always say? We're not claiming CMMC Jesus here. We hope you guys enjoyed today's webinar, and just like Bobby said,
Ken's in it. Hey, Ken.
Oh yeah, Ken.
Hey, buddy.
So we are going to continue to do these throughout the year. We went to a couple of different conferences, and we realized there's a lot of MSPs that we want to talk to and we want to reach, and a lot of people that are stepping into this space that we want to talk to and we want to reach, and we can't always go to Las Vegas. And we don't always want to be honest. But we want to connect with you guys, so we're going to continue to do these. So make sure to stay tuned, because we are going to be posting about our upcoming one that will be in a few weeks as well. It'll be on a different topic, all different topics. So stay tuned. Thank you guys so much again for being in here. We really appreciate it, and it's been great connecting with you.
Make sure to follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube to stay up to date on the latest CMMC news. We hope you guys enjoyed today's episode and listen out for the next one. But until then, keep on climbing.